anger, sex, and diet. What Stephanie now needs to do in order to lose 30 pounds and keep it off is to stop being ashamed of being sexually attractive and to acknowledge her attractiveness openly. She needs to stop faking pleasantness and sweetness when she feels angry, and she needs to tell people where to get off. This may take some time for her to learn, and a therapist can assist her by creating the context in which that learning may occur, by sharing his own experience, and by encouraging her to give him hell when she feels like it. That couple of sessions with Stephanie was done in a context of permission granted by an authority where it was okay to talk about feelings she thought she shouldn't talk about while she was having them. That let her give herself permission to experience and acknowledge out loud to a man some of the taboo and uncomfortable feelings she had been avoiding. As therapist, my willingness to talk about the immediate issue of our attraction to each other and the honest way we talked created a context for dealing with the issues of sex and anger out loud. A taboo was violated. Her secret thoughts came out and were expressed in front of a male in a context of no danger. Eventually, she would be coached to come out of the closet with the truth about her feelings in situations with men whom she used to consider dangerous, and she could discover that she need not be as careful as she thought. A context is like a big bowl into which everything about a personality is included and considered acceptable. The context that a person on a diet creates has to include occasional binges, wanting to quit entirely, feeling excited and energetic, getting a headache, feeling scared and irritable and turned on and angry and happy and depressed and confused. It also may include occasional plateaus, looking at what she really wants to do with her life and being afraid to change. The more help a therapist gives a client to create that context for herself, the more successfully the client will handle what comes up when the therapist is not around. The therapist does this by sharing his or her experience and by giving the client an idea of what the work is all about. The purpose is not to scare or warn the client, but rather to encourage her right from the start to be willing to experience whatever comes up as part of being a creator of her life, rather than a victim of previously learned ways of handling life. These previously learned methods of adaptation to life do work. Getting drunk works. Getting stoned works. Being overweight works. Being sad works, particularly in a world where being angry or horny or expressively joyful are taboo. These are all methods of survival, and if they get replaced, there is a risk that the new replacement will be a big pain to accomplish and not work as well as the old way. Problems that seem unacceptable start looking better after a little suffering that is greater than that associated with the problem. This is why the context for each person's commitment to change has to include a perspective that allows for periods of greater discomfort than that caused by the problem they are trying to fix. Stephanie has suppressed a lot of resentment toward men about the wisecracks they make about her body. Perhaps she will find a way to express that resentment effectively. Perhaps not. It is important to realize, however, that anger is not the only excitement she eats to avoid. She must come up with a way to handle the excitement of having men pay attention to her. She handled that excitement before by tranquilizing it with food in the short run, and by getting fatter. By becoming less exciting to others, she eventually resolved the anxiety of being uncomfortably excited herself. If she loses a certain amount of weight, she'll get down to where she is exciting and excited again. She'll have to deal with that excitement another way, or gain the weight back. She may have to admit that the excitement she was avoiding was her own. It is partly her own response to the men's attention that scares her or makes her feel uncomfortable. Getting fat allows people who are uncomfortable about their own sexual excitement to be emotionally intimate with members of the opposite sex while remaining physically isolated from them. In this way, they remain safe from their own sexuality. Saying no is not a problem when we mean no. It's saying no to wanting to say yes, from which Stephanie has protected herself by gaining weight. Her weight greatly diminished her opportunities to say no or yes. She will have to confront this choice and make it each time it comes up, rather than avoid the experience of lust. We can salute the genius of minds that come up with neurotic solutions to problems. People do the best they can, and they do a pretty good job of surviving and handling a lot of conflicting interests. I congratulate the mind that comes up with each creative, ingenious solution, and I respect it. I think effectiveness in maintaining weight loss is one of the most graphic ways of determining the effectiveness of psychotherapy. When I support someone in losing weight and keeping it off, I must respectfully request his mind to come up with another answer. People who lose weight successfully come up with other answers. People who don't lose weight successfully fail to come up with other answers. Across the board, on all diets, only about 12% of the people who lose weight maintain the loss for a year. Statistics about weight loss are probably very much reflective of the likelihood of any lasting psychological change. People who are able to make a certain diet work can probably make any diet work. The other 88% want to lose weight and do for a while but can't sustain the change. I think that about 12% of the people who go for any psychological change make it stick. The help of a good therapist makes these statistics a little better. Not many people sustain real change without support in creating a context called going through what has been previously avoided or kept secret. Some people do it on their own with friends who aren't therapists. No one really does it alone. Each innocent new life comes out of that eternity of blissful timelessness in the womb and begins to learn control, distinguish, name, and manipulate the parts of the world that get distinguished. There are as many ways to be embroiled in that process as there have been human beings in history. Behind these millions and millions of ways of being, human beings have always shared a unitary hum, a sense of being, and a common history of having lived in eternal bliss in the womb. What has also always been there is the possibility of identifying with that beingness rather than identifying exclusively with the unique adaptation the being came up with to survive in the world. As we grow up, we descend from heaven and ascend into hell. We come down from the heaven of the womb and we grow up into the hell of civilized, acculturated neurosis. Salvation is the rediscovery of ourselves as being. To escape the hard-earned, hard-built prison of the self, we must reinterpret our identities to include more than that prison. We must re-identify ourselves to include the more primitive and universally shared self that we all were and are and evermore shall be. When this power gets tapped, it can be used for such mundane things as losing weight or making a living, as well as for a complete turnaround in life. To recognize and accept the mind's way of adapting to the world for the sake of survival is the first step on the way back home to the hum. Resistance to one's case history self, particularly trying to change that self, keeps one trapped in one's case history. Acceptance of one's case history self allows one to get over it. When psychotherapy works, the person loosens her identity with her own case history and identifies with her being, the one who has been there since the light came on in the womb, the one who is electrical and alive and able to pay attention, second by second, heartbeat by heartbeat, present moment by present moment.